Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race. We are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me for episode 287 of the Running for Real podcast. I'm excited that you are here. Although, as you're going to hear, this episode is not coming to you how I expected it to, how I anticipated it, how I wanted it to. But I'm taking this as a learning moment. I'm taking this as a moment to check in, to be real, to be raw, to be vulnerable, to be what this podcast is for. By sharing with you what I'm working through right now with what happened today, as well as also just being vulnerable and showing that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay that sometimes we all aren't perfect, and not that I am normally perfect, I shouldn't say it like that, but the mistakes happen, and it's okay to admit that we've made a mistake, or it's okay to say that we've changed our mind on something. So I just wanted to make this this is going to be a solo episode. However, there will be someone joining me for just a little bit of the conversation. And so you will get to hear why that is in just a minute. But for now, I just want to take a moment to tell you about why I am talking to you the way that I am. So today you were meant to be hearing an interview between Sidney Baptista and I. Sid has done a lot within the running community. You may have seen about Pace, the new coaching service, or that is now doing really good stuff. So you may have seen him recently come up for that, but he's actually someone who has set up PYNRS running crew out in Boston. He also has started working on his own apparel brand. I was really excited to share his insights. We had an amazing conversation, the two of us, last week. However, when I went to add that episode or when my editor went to edit that episode, his audio wasn't there. We don't know why. I could hear him, and somehow it didn't record. And it came at a bit of a bad time in terms of last night. I didn't really sleep because I did sleep a little bit. I shouldn't say it like that, but I had hard time falling asleep. I didn't fall asleep till midnight last night because I went down one of those anxiety spirals as to what am I doing? What is my place in the world? Why can't I get a real job? Why can't I, get a secure thing? What if the brands I work with decide they don't want to work with us anymore? Just went down that anxiety spiral. And the funny thing is, the conversation with Sid, a lot of it was about that, about being entrepreneurs, about expectations, about the pressure we put on ourselves. Sid even talked about having anxiety about that. And so it kind of seems like it was well timed in that's what I was worrying about last night. And then today I lost the episode. And of course there was that piece of me that was like, why did you not check the recording? Why aren't you more professional? And I had those voices in my head criticizing me. And I was also looking for someone to blame. I wanted to reach out and say it was someone else's fault other than my own, knowing full well that it was my fault. And it's okay to make a mistake. And so that's what I want to talk about today in terms of Sid will be joining us for a little bit of the episode, and I will pause to let him in and go back to the rest of the solo episode after having the conversation with him. But I thought we could talk through mistakes. We are in such a charged world right now. We're very ready to pounce on one another. We're ready to point fingers and blame, and we're all scared of making mistakes or talking about our mistakes. And so I wanted to, break that in a way that I could. And firstly, before I go any further, I want to say thank you to you, because I recognize that it might be really daunting to fail for some of us, for all of us, if we don't feel like we're in a safe environment to fail or to say that we failed or what we think is we have failed. Admitting mistakes is easier when we're surrounded by a safe community of people. And so I want to take this moment to show appreciation for you, the Running for Real listeners, for being a part of that safe, encouraging, supportive environment where I feel like I can share and can admit my mistakes and can talk about these things. So thank you to you, because without you providing me that, I wouldn't be able to talk about it so comfortably. So I encourage you, if you are feeling as though you aren't sure that you could speak out if you made a mistake, even if it's something as unimportant to the grand scheme of the world as losing or not recording a podcast episode, but whatever it may be in your life, how can you create a supportive environment? I know that's what we're trying to do at Running for Real, and a lot of the events and stuff that we are putting on right now, which I'll tell you about, is all about trying to make a safe, encouraging, supportive environment. So I'd love to talk about that. But first, before we do that, I do want to take a moment to thank Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode. Obviously, I had an original ad that was supposed to be in here, but today I'm just going to talk about it freestyle. Tracksmith is that independent running brand fueled by a deep love of the sport. They know that together the running community has the power to drive positive change. And that inspired them to rethink how they work with partners like us at Running for Real. So we are honoured that 5% of all sales made by Running for Real listeners will go to support Runners for Public Lands, which is a 501c3 non-profit environmental organisation which is dedicated to environmental justice, advocacy and conservation. So if you use the link in the show notes, you can go get yourself free shipping, and 5% of that sale will go to Runners for Public Lands. You can also just use code TINA15 to participate and to get that special deal. And if you go to the link in the show notes or go to the link attached to wherever you're listening to this, you can find some of my favorite items on there, such as the Horizon Tank, Brighton base layer, the Run Bra, the Session Speed shorts, and the Alston tights. Those are some of my favorites that I wear on a daily basis throughout my life and in my running. You can find some of my favorites there, or you can just go to tracksmith.com to check out their clothes, to check out the programs that they have. Tracksmith is really, really doing its part for running culture to make it a positive place to be. Really, we are really proud to be working alongside Tracksmith, and so I just wanted to take a moment to go thank them. So you can use code, again, TINA15 at tracksmith.com, or click that link in the show notes to go check out that special offer and some of my favorite items. Okay, so back to what we were saying here. It can be difficult to make mistakes now, but I want to go over some points that our team at Running for Real made when I talked about this episode, because immediately when I found out that I didn't have the recording, I panicked and thought, I'm not going to be able to record it again. It's not fair to him to record it again, to have wasted his time. However, obviously people don't view it like that. We're always harder on ourselves than others. But I did reach out to the Running for Real team and I said, what if I made an episode on mistakes? What if I just talked through the way that we treat ourselves and talk through the fact that admitting our mistakes, or admitting that we were wrong, admitting that we changed our minds or we learned more, that growth mindset essentially is something that we don't see very often nowadays. And so I asked for their feedback, and some of the things I will be sharing are attributed to our team. So thank you to each and every one of them who contributed to that and gave me some things to talk about here, because they're all things that are important to mention. But before we get to that, I just said about admitting you were wrong or changing your mind. And I've talked a lot about the Disney movie Encanto. There are so many good points to that movie, but I felt that really embodied it in one of the most important messages or lessons that came out of that movie that is going, directed at kids, is that Abuela changed her mind and admitted that she had got it wrong, and she had learned that it was her broken heart that was hurting the family. And so I thought that was really beautiful that they showed that you can learn more and you can change and you can grow. And I know we've talked about on this podcast before the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset, how both, hold places for us, how we may want to move towards more of a growth mindset. We want to keep learning, we want to keep growing and viewing the world as a place where we can continue to just be better versions of ourselves and continue to improve. But I recognize that's not always easy, depending on your life experiences and your situation, to be able to view things with a growth mindset. But there's a great book, I believe it's called, what is it called? It's by Carol Dweck. Is that her name? Yeah. See, this is running for real. I haven't prepared. I wasn't aware I was going to talk about her book, and I'm actually going to look it up. This is the first ever while I'm recording. Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset. Oh, her book is called Mindset. I should have known that. So Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, is definitely one I would recommend if you are not sure about what I'm referring to with the growth and fixed mindsets. It is a fantastic book, and I really recommend it. I'll put a link in the show notes if you don't already have it. But yes, so making mistakes. If we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to make mistakes, to admit a mistake, we are also losing opportunities to be able to fix it, to be able to learn from it, to be able to grow. And Sally reminded me that the person or people that I told, that I shared with making this mistake, or whatever mistake you have made in your life, would maybe have advice for how to make it into something positive, or at least less negative. But it also means that out of it comes not only a connection opportunity to get to know the person you are sharing with and to feel more connected to them. And, we know we need that right now, but also it gives the opportunity to be able to help that person to feel that they can share their mistakes. And that's something that I really feel that I notice nowadays with what is going on, that there's so much shame and blaming and we're all afraid to say anything wrong, even if it's just something as simple as picking the wrong restaurant for dinner, because there's so much finger pointing and so much just shaming that's happening for any mistake that we make. And I think a lot about the fact that now anything we say can be filmed, can be shared 10, 15 years down the road. And it's quite scary. I mean, context could be taken away. And so I obviously can't change a society. That's way too big of a problem, but or too big of a challenge for one person to take on. But I want to do our part at Running for Real for not only creating a safe space for us to be able to admit our mistakes and talk through things, but also to be able to change our mind, be able to learn and grow. And Jeremy reminded me of I've had this before, the founder of Post-it notes became a thing because of an inventor failing to make the strong adhesive he was going for. And look at how Post-it notes are a valuable piece of our lives, as something that are used every single day by millions of people around the world. And another running example specifically Jeremy gave was Des giving up on winning Boston that year she won, where she literally said to Shalane, "It's not my day. What can I do to support you?" I mean, that's another perfect example of it being this inevitable, essential part of the human experience, and something that we need to stop being so afraid of doing. So while it's not ideal that I have to re-record this episode with Sid, but from that, I am going to come out of it with a deeper connection with Sid, which hopefully will be reflected in an even more enjoyable episode for you. And I've also been pushed uncomfortably into doing this solo episode, or primarily solo episode, where I can talk through this and talk through my feelings. So I'm hopefully helping others by sharing my story, but also then getting a deeper conversation with Sid through re-recording. At this moment, I want to remind us that those in our lives who do blame us, laugh at us, use sarcasm with us, aren't people that we really want to be surrounding ourselves in our lives anyway. Obviously, that's bigger than the society at large and the way that we are quick to cancel people, but just in our general lives, we want to be trying to step back from, or put some distance between us and people who do berate us or tell us that we are dumb or we are stupid for making a mistake, for doing something that, everyone does. I often think about, I've talked about this maybe in other podcasts or at least in other conversations with people, about the comments that can be made while elite runners are on a track race, like let's say an 800, and getting that split second to make a decision as to what move they're going to make. And sometimes they make the wrong move. And when people criticize them and say, what a dumb mistake to make, that's hard, because we don't know what it's like to feel like to be in that person's shoes. And the only way we can learn that empathy, or learn understanding what other people are going through, is by letting them share their story, and by letting them talk through what it feels like to be in that situation. And so we've got to get better at listening in that way. And I'm trying. It's not easy to do. I recognize that it can be hard to stop and listen, to not insert our own experiences into a situation and assume that we know what the other person's going to say. I find that really, really difficult to do sometimes, but it's something that I'm continuing to work on. And also within this world of social media, we quite often only see the good, don't we? We see the positive, and we see that everything is working out for everyone else. And for us, all we seem to do is make mistakes. All we seem to do is mess up. Now, I've talked about social media many, many times, and I do believe there is some positive. But I wrote about, on social media today, I wrote about losing this podcast, and how after the blaming feelings came in and those old behaviors that I'm trying to get away from came in, then the experiences of just feeling guilt, and those, that inner critic voice came through saying, why did you do this? Why didn't you think? Why aren't you more professional? Why aren't you a better podcast host? All those questions started to come in, but I managed to grab myself right away to say, I made a mistake, to own that, to admit to that, to speak up to that, to bring that shame out into the light, because shame thrives on silence, judgment, and secrecy. And by bringing that out into the light, I didn't allow it to take over my mind, to allow it to say, I am dumb, I am stupid, I am a mistake, I am a mess up, which is where our minds often go if we don't speak about it. So I encourage you to speak up, to share it, even if it's not necessarily on a podcast that thousands of people listen to, but it could be just to a friend, to say, I made this mistake, it sucks, I feel like I really screwed up here, it hurts, and just talk through it. I really believe that is one way to not only get rid of that shame, to destroy it, because it can't survive when it's talked about, but also to be able to, and I want to credit Brene Brown to all of the stuff around shame. She's a shame researcher. I talk about Brene all the time, and she's definitely in my ear. Not right now, literally, but I wish. But she has definitely influenced me on the way that I view that. But to be able to speak to what we're feeling, so that we take the power out of it. So, friends, this is a very haphazard and put together randomly conversation. I want to take a moment to thank Inside Tracker for sponsoring this episode. I'm just going to talk through why I'm such a big fan of Inside Tracker. I've been using their service since 2016. I love that you just go to any Quest facility, get some blood work done with them. Oh, you obviously have to sign up first. Go to a Quest facility, get signed up, get your blood work taken, and then they will give you feedback, tell you which of your markers are optimized, which ones need work, which ones are at risk. You'll be able to track your progress over time and see how you're moving into optimized or maybe moving in the wrong direction for some things. They will give you actionable steps to take, as in what foods you should be eating, what changes you should be making. You can set yourself up a goal and they will check in to see how you're doing with that. You can also have access to dietitians if you need that. And each type of dietary requirement you may have will be considered when they give you recommendations. There's also the science and all the videos and blogs if you're really into the science end of things. And I just love that it gives me a realistic assessment of what is going on with my body. I can really, whenever I have been feeling like something is a little bit off, I get an Inside Tracker test done and immediately it tells me what is going on exactly. So I don't have to play the game of, could it be this? Could it be that? Maybe I'll try taking this. Maybe I'll try taking that. This will give you the answer. So you don't have to do that back and forth. You don't have to risk your goal race. You get the answer right there, and there will be the solution for you right in front of you of how to take care of it. So I definitely recommend Inside Tracker, and you, my friend, can get 25% off your order by going to insidetracker.com/Tina, and that will give you 25% off. That's a huge deal, specifically for Running for Real listeners. So thank you again to Inside Tracker. You can go to insidetracker.com/Tina to go get that and check that out. Now, I think we should check in with Sid, talk through what happened, and then his experience with that. I just wanted to get him to jump on this call. He was more than willing to do so and talk through it, because this is still very raw for me. And while, again, this is such I don't want to say a first world problem, but this is such an insignificant, unimportant piece of life in the grand scheme of things. I'm not going to remember this moment when I'm 82, but it's still a moment that is pivotal in terms of the way that I approach this and the way, maybe the message that comes through to you. So I want to talk with Sid about his experience with failure, and then we'll bring him on the podcast to have that redo of a podcast episode in the future. So without any further ado, let's head over to Sid and let's chat through it.
Hey, my name is Sidney Baptista. I'm the founder of PYNRS Run Crew in Boston and PYNRS Performance Streetwear. It's a streetwear-inspired running brand. And I'm a running coach with a new app called Stay on Pace.
Sid, we were meant to have a podcast coming out today. Not there.
It is
Where
all
did it
good.
go? We do not know.
But we tried.
We did try. And we had a very special conversation. You'll just never get to hear, well, as far as we know, won't get to hear the light of day. But that said, we did have an important conversation, and I really appreciate the conversation that we had. And I just said in this recording I just did that the weird thing is, I told you this already when I left your voice memo this morning, telling you about this. I couldn't sleep last night because I was going down the rabbit hole of why do I do this? This is a why are you chasing this career? What if you lose what if the brands all pull out? What if you can't keep your business going? What if you can't pay the people that work with you? I started spiraling. And then this morning I got the text from Jeremy, our editor, saying that we'd lost the file. It wasn't there. And so I thought to the conversation that you and I had, and part of the conversation, right, was about failing.
Yes.
Was about expectations, was about things going wrong, and also about that panic that I just said I had last night, that you feel sometimes too, that anxiety. Yes. What am I risking when I don't know what I'm getting out of this? So it's horrible, but also kind of perfect in many ways that it worked the way it did. So as much as it's frustrating for you to talk through this, and we're going to have a full episode where we get to know you, talk to me about your feelings when I left you that voice memo.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was not feeling mad or bad or anything like that of the sorts, because I've been there, and not necessarily losing a podcast episode, which if I think back, I'm sure I have. But it's more about like trying things, failing, and going out on your own and doing something, and you don't have something else to kind of bounce back on. But I can just hear it in your voice. You just were like, you took it, you owned it, you were upset with yourself, but then you were like, all right, let's, here's a solution. And that's like the way that you handle it. And in the Instagram post that you put up, it's like the true definition of what a leader should do. Own it.
Thank you.
Right? Own it. Tell people about it, because I think you hit it spot on. You said people are hide behind it, shame, and also a lot of what people do is they don't talk about situations like this. And so I think it's so important. I know so many people that probably read that message, and me included, that was like, yeah, this is powerful in the sense that you made a mistake, and you own it and you talk about it, and it's okay. And it was not, it's a mistake, but I'm happy to talk to you again. But I just love the way that you handled it.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And I have to thank as my husband calls her, my cult leader in Brene Brown. He's always joking that I'm going to disappear one day. But Brene is the one that, put that in my mind, and just the whole thing that happened with Spotify. Really, I mean, her example of leadership there to me was just so powerful. And so when this happened, I thought, yeah, I have to own up to this. But let's talk through, you said that to you it wasn't a big deal. You were happy to talk again. And I'm sure in all yes, okay, sometimes we make mistakes and they hurt people and there is no way around it. But often we make mistakes, and in our heads, they are so terrible, so big, and something that
crippling
is just like unforgivable. Yeah. But to everyone else, it's like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Move on. Yeah. Not necessarily like get over it, although there certainly is a lot of that in the world. But talk through how you process stuff like that as it happens, and then you right now being in the position of being on the other side of it and being like, it's okay. Based on that experience, what would you say to someone?
So I'm actually very similar to you, where I like beat myself up about it. And I'm just upset about it, but, and just try to, so I've been in that position. And so I definitely understand it, and it sucks. And it's like you said, all the different things come back, all the other emotions of like everything else come with it, right? Like, why am I doing this? I can't even get this straight. If I can't get this, how am I going to do the next thing? And so I've been there. And so that's why I understood. And I also saw kind of how you were dealing with it and how I deal with it. So similar. And then being in my shoes, it was like, no, this is like totally fine. Had it been maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to think of if it hadn't been you, right? And it wasn't a podcast that I enjoyed. If my thoughts would have been different, if I was in a different space, if I was stressed out as well. If I would have been like, oh man, I don't have time for this. So I'm trying to see and think through if I would have had a different response, given the circumstances, but I don't think I would have. I think that, like I said, I think the way you handled it was awesome, and I've been there myself, and so I understand. But I could definitely see why some people would be like, this is a waste of my time, or whatever it is, whatever the source is. But I think it's a good learning moment. As soon as you sent that message, I was like, this is a good learning moment. And you said like, let's talk about making mistakes episode. I was like, I think that's great. I think people will really enjoy this, and taking something that didn't work out and making it kind of a teaching moment and a learning moment. I think it's really cool.
And I mentioned at the beginning that you had known this, that you have been through this, and that there's some things that you felt were a total failure, and that were something that you really screwed up or didn't get right, or the world was working against you, but you managed to overcome those. So while we will talk about this, more in another episode, I'd love, while we're on the topic of mistakes and things that didn't go the way you expected, share some of that with us, of some of the things in your life.
Where do I start? I'm an entrepreneur, so that's like basically, right? I gave a talk at a middle school this morning about entrepreneurship and ownership and being a business owner. And I talked about a lot of the failures that I've had from like starting businesses and when I was in the stage of creating music festivals and how much time and energy and money I put into this project. And I was so naive as to how the back end worked, how like city approvals worked, and how relationships and how, being a young Black man in the city doesn't help you get open doors, and just being naive to that side of it. I put so much time and effort on the front end of building the experience, and like taking a step back, just being like, that was just so dumb. It was just like such a waste of my time. However, that's one way to look at it. And that was the mistake, right? Is of like focusing on one side of the business. And now I understand that. And so I don't do that anymore, focusing on just one side of the business. But if I hadn't done that and like put my passion and efforts into that and failed, I wouldn't have been ready for the next thing up. And that was right before I got into running, right? Like I had gone through this failure and I was like, oh my God, this sucks. I don't know what to do, And so then I found running after that. And so I can credit that failure to finding running. That's like a big one. And I've made tons of other mistakes as well, but that's a big one that comes to mind.
So let's talk to that then. When things go wrong in life, be it a mistake or something just doesn't work out how you hoped, how you anticipated, how you wanted, you've just said that kind of essentially opened a door that other things led to those moments, other things came because of that. How can sometimes in a moment where you feel like the world is against you, how can things come out of that could actually be even better for you than what you thought was going to happen, even if it might take time?
You asked a very similar question when we had the chat, and I was like, man, that's great. Because in the moment, it's so hard to see. Like in the moment of pain, and when I say pain, I actually do mean excruciating, like physical pain of failure. Like you feel it. I can't explain. Like it's not like pain in your leg, but it's like pain that you feel when you're doing. It's the same as when you're doing something very, very hard for the first time. You're like trying to get over. It's like it's a physical pain. In the moment, it's like it's just hard, and it's easy to beat yourself up and just and just not be happy with yourself. And honestly, I think it's time. I know it's cliche, right? Time heals wounds, but it's time. It's honestly like having that experience and then having the time to reflect on that experience, taking the time to reflect on that experience, and then using that experience of failure to make sure that you're doing the right things or taking the right checks or considering all the right options or considering whatever you're doing next, that you're keeping in mind and you've reflected on what went wrong in the past. And so I honestly, in the moment, it's not fun. And I do think reassurance from other folks, from your peers, from people who, even from people who you don't think are supporting you from the outside, but like then come to you and like, listen, like whatever when you did this, it like was so inspiring to me. Right. That happens to me all the time right now. Right. Even when I did music festivals, people who just kind of were silent about it, friends of a while, they come to me and like, this opened my eyes to what's possible, right? Like you are inspiring. And so having that is also very helpful, right? So talk to your peers, talk to your friends, because although you might sound like you might be complaining to them, you could get like really good assurances, and that feels good. We're all human. We all need that. So I think that's
how do you find out who you can trust to talk to about difficult things like this? Because we all know there's people in our lives that you share something hard or you share something that's really you're battling with right now, and their response is, and I'm still working against this within my own like ingrained behaviors, not trying to fix things, but actually just sitting with that person or being able to try and understand their experience without trying to fix it. How do you go about seeking those people?
I love that question because I know who not to talk to, right? Like I know who not to bring this stuff up to. Especially my wife. Like there are things that I can tell her, and she won't beat me up. But I know there are things if I tell her, she would like beat me up about it. Like you should have done this. She's very much a fix it. But I would say when I think back to kind of like the people I share with. So when I had quit my corporate job, right? This is before even the music festivals. I quit my corporate jobs to create music festivals. The people who then stayed in those corporate jobs and are climbing those ladders, sometimes I go back to them and talk to them because they are in a spot where I was. And they will assure me that it's not what it was. It's not like, they're like, some of them are like, man, I wish I could do what you do. And that fuels me. It's like, I wish that I had the courage to do what you do. So it's like, all right, then it's not all grass is green on that side. Right. And then, so that's like kind of one avenue I take. And then it's people who are in the thick of it, especially in the running space. If I think of people who are creating businesses or have running teams, other leaders or my peers, those are people I go to now these days. Yeah.
And I think you're right that we instinctively know who isn't going to be that person, even if that person desperately might want to be that person for us. We know that it's only going to frustrate us more or leave us in a place that is not healthy in that certain situation. So we all know maybe by process of elimination who the person would be. And I also think it's important that we surround ourselves with someone who is totally honest, even if it hurts. So if you're doing something and you screwed up, or if you're doing something that isn't working out, you want to have some people in your life who are able to be like, I just don't know if this is the right idea, or I don't know if this is a good idea for you, and not in the like pessimistic, nothing is going to work out kind of way.
Yes,
but just the ruthlessly honest. I love you. I'm here to support you, but I think there's a better way you could spend your energy and time. Do you have some people in your life like that?
Yeah. So I'll go back to, I do. So my wife, right now we kind of work together. We both work on the business, and for a while there we try to do it, but we just like argue a lot about different things. But she's like a BS meter, and so. On the contrary, there are things I avoid telling her because I know she's going to give me the truth and the raw, like how it is. And sometimes I don't want to hear that, but that's also not good. Right. But there are people that are other than her that I go to who will set it straight. And one of my good friends would always keep it real. And so there's always good to have that too. But you also have to fall out. Don't try to avoid those people when you know you need it. Because I know I can do that, right? If there's something I want to do.
How do you do that? How do you keep yourself doing that?
If there's something I want to do, I will figure out a way to tell the person who it's kind of weird. Like, I know I want to do this and there's nothing going to change my mind to do it. So I have to like tell the story or explain it in a way that it's going to be beneficial. And sometimes you just got to learn your lessons. Sometimes you got to spend the time or the money or, waste. I wouldn't call it waste, but you have to learn from experience. And I do that. Yeah. It's funny how you trick yourself.
Very guilty.
It's funny how you trick yourself.
Yeah. I quite often am known for going to various people to talk to them about things. And my husband, Steve, often jokes says that I'll keep asking people until I hear the answer I want to hear. And so I'm trying to really work against that now and be like, if 3 or 4 people all say like, I don't know about that, there's something to that. But it's not easy when, like you said, you don't want to hear that thing that they're saying. And I think runners especially can relate to this with injuries, right? When you say like, I've got this pain, it's kind of getting worse with every run and it's hurting afterwards and it's throbbing at night. And multiple people are like, probably should take some time off. And you're like, well, I read this thing somewhere that it could be this random little injury that doesn't need time off, actually needs you to just keep your running going and it'll fade away. But then, multiple people are like, yeah, that doesn't sound good to me. We runners get used to doing that a lot, don't we? Or at least.
Yes, absolutely.
I have.
Yes. I just saw something recently in my running group, someone who's training for Boston Marathon, and they have a training plan and they're crowdsourcing. They're like, got a coach. The coach is giving them information and they're crowdsourcing information based on what the coach, like the workup that the coach gave. It's like, if you have a coach, work with the coach. I'm so against that. And it's like also like wanting to find something. Right? Yes. It was so funny though. It's just like, what do you guys think of this that my coach put together? It's like, well, it's you and your coach. I'm sure you two have know more information than what we have. And so, but yeah, I think it's got to
be hard for you as a coach to see that, because you must have that with some of your athletes that, like if you haven't got that trust of where they listen to what you're saying and do it, like not like unquestionably, like I say, do this, you do this, but trusting you, like I'm just curious, like tell me your emotions when you were seeing that.
I think it's trust all around. It's like, so I deal with a lot of new runners, right? That's who I work with the most. And it's like, just trust the general, trust your body, trust the work you're putting in, trust what I'm telling you, trust what the work that you're putting. I think that's a barrier that's like a little hard to get over, because it's a lot of it's mental, right? It's like, can I do this? And then also when it comes to trusting kind of like your training plan, it's like looking at other runners, like, oh, but this person's doing this and this person is doing that. It's like, well, you're not that person, right? Like we put this plan together because it's in line with what your capacity is, or in line with what your abilities are. And so, it's very interesting. I think trust as overall, it's very hard.
Thank you. Right, Sid. Well, thank you for working through this with me. If you could share where people can go find you, then they can follow along until the next one. And I appreciate you helping me process this, for being gracious in your understanding and thoughtful with your responses. So tell people where they can go find you if they enjoy today.
Find me on Instagram is typically where I spend most of my time. It's Sid Bap. And if you want to see some of the fun stuff my wife's doing with the brand, she's running our TikTok right now. It's PYNRS, PYNRS _ on TikTok. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of office parody and fun stuff. So that's where we get along, is when she does TikTok. We get along.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and look forward to the next one.
Same. Thank you.
Hi friends, just a quick message to say a big thank you to the Running for Real team. While I may be the face of Running for Real and the voice behind the podcast, there are a group of people who are working tirelessly to provide everything that runners could need within our community, to make our community stronger, better, and evolve and grow and learn from one another. We are working really hard to make Running for Real the place we believe it can be within our community. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone on our team. That is Victoria, Stacy, Sandy, Sally, Maria, Kelsey, Kat, Jeremy, and Erica. I appreciate each and every one of you and the hard work that you put in. Now let's get back to the show.
So thankful to Sid for joining me for that episode and being willing to talk about struggle with failure and making mistakes and just being able to own up to them. I obviously appreciated his kind words about the way I handled it, because I didn't feel like I did great with that, but it's nice to hear people say that, right? I want to just take a moment before we wrap up here to talk about Together 22 Goals, which is something that the Running for Real team has been working very hard on. There's a self-compassion challenge going on right now. And yes, if you have missed the first few days of the challenge, this isn't a challenge where you are, again, a failure, like kind of perfect to be talking about this. You aren't a failure if you don't manage to complete all of the days of the challenge. It's not a big deal. We want to be able to give ourselves grace. We want to learn. We want to move forward. And the Together 22 Goals for this month is our self-compassion month. And I know, I don't want to talk about that ooey gooey stuff, and I don't want to jump on another Zoom call. I don't want to add yet another thing to my list, but this is what we need right now. I'm, as someone who is in this moment right now, there's a lot that is out there that's negative about the world, about ourselves, about the situation. This will help you feel excited, connected, hopeful. So be brave. Come join us for one of the Zoom calls. Come sign up. Come find out what it's all about through the Running for Real Superstars community on Facebook, or by going to runningforreal.com and signing up for our newsletter. You will find out more there. You will get to hear more of this kind of conversation of where I'm just talking. That's what the newsletters are, and that's why people enjoy them so much. So come join us. Come over to runningforreal.com, runningforreal.com with the word for, and you can go check out what we're up to over there. And you can also subscribe to the newsletter. You can find links in the show notes for this stuff. And also thank you once again to Tracksmith and to Inside Tracker for sponsoring these episodes. Be sure to go check out what they are offering, tracksmith.com, and using code TINA15. And at Inside Tracker, going to insidetracker.com/Tina to get that 25% off. Thank you so much for listening, my friends. Thank you for being that safe space for me, and for your kindness, your love, your loyalty. You are enough, my friend. Have a great week.